Today is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and today I'm going to read Isaiah chapter 38, and I'm also going to talk about some old world stuff in Oregon, steam technology. I'm not going to go too deep into anything. I actually want to spend this time to talk about why do I do Bible reading in conspiracy videos, and honestly, the conspiracy stuff is secondary to me now. It's like a passing interest, and I am glad that the fake history stuff is getting big today. I'm seeing more and more new channels, but I think it's important to remember the message, and the only message that matters that I got over these past years, learning conspiracy and waking up, literally the only message that matters is that I found Jesus. And I don't think that learning hidden truths is going to give me salvation. I feel like a lot of people come with that attitude. Like, if only I could figure out that one piece of information, if only I can make that one YouTube video that just unlocks this truth, breaks the seal. No, that's not up to us. The message that I got from all of this is that Jesus is the truth, and Jesus is the only way out of this place. Don't you want out of this place? Where are the solutions? There's a lot of conspiracy channels out there, and they'll talk ad nauseum about the same subject over and over and over again. But where's the solution? Okay, so all of history is fake, and there are all these old buildings. What's your solution? What are we supposed to do about it? And so some people might have some new age stuff to shill. It seems like I'll just say it, it seems like the controlled opposition, no matter what it comes to, flat earth, fake outer space stuff, fake history, I think most of your shills are going to be shilling some new age-ism, guruism, and not talking about Jesus. And I think that there should be a group of strong Christian Jesus followers that are constantly saying that that's the point. That is the point of conspiracy. God used conspiracy to show me the truth of Jesus Christ. And I don't think that unlocking some other conspiracy, figuring out one more fake animal, outing one more transgender celebrity, proving that a building wasn't built 200 years ago by horses and buggies, that's not going to save your soul. So I try to keep talking about the most important thing, and that's that through conspiracy, I found Jesus, and that's the message that I was looking for. Okay, and that's what will set you free. Nobody will get out of this place without Jesus today. Okay, Isaiah chapter 38. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, came unto him, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Set thine house in order, for thou shalt die, and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall, and prayed unto the Lord, and said, Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth, and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. Then came the word of the Lord to Isaiah, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years. Praise God. God is a healer. Jesus, when Jesus came to earth, he predominantly was healing and preaching. And the healing aspect of Jesus and the apostles, after Jesus went back to God, was healing, physical healing. And doctors these days love to play God. Oh, you have this many years left to live. You have this many years left to live. God has the ability to heal us and add years to our life. Prayer is powerful. God hears our prayers. Even though, and notice here, it's interesting because God sent a message, you're going to die. And then he prayed, and I mean, I don't want to say God changed his mind, because God knows everything that's going to ever happen. So God knew that he was going to pray, but it was like a test. I feel like this was a test. You're going to die. And if he didn't pray, he would have just died. I think that he really was sick and God literally healed him, performed a miracle so that he had 15 more years to live. That's not a small number. 15 more years is a lot. He was really suffering with something and was given a lot of time. And I will deliver thee and the city out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city. And this shall be a sign unto thee from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing that he hath spoken. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backwards. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down. The sun reversed. There's multiple instances in the Bible that prove that NASA Outer Space Land is not real, and that totally contradicts physics. The sun has stood in place before. That's been recorded. And here it says that the sun went backwards. Could you imagine being present to see something like that? And here too, the fact that it's 10 degrees, people really think that in times past people were wretched and knew nothing. I may as well just shout it out because I saw a video of this new channel. I think it's called My Lunch Break or something like that. But they were making a pretty good point about how part of what gets people to believe in the fake history is that they tell us today that we're the best and we're the smartest. And you see this all the time. Whenever you say, nah, the early settlers of America did not build these buildings with horses and buggies, you see people get offended. And it's like this white nationalist. It's very, very much free Martin, white nationalist pride of, we built these things, we're great. And it's that pride that gets people deceived, and my ancestors built these buildings. Anyways, the point of this is people think that everything happened within like the last 200 years and that people are just super smart today and that people in the times past were wretched and stupid. But there's all sorts of historical sundials, and they knew how to travel all over the earth and the oceans and navigate with the stars, and they were so smart. Like they calculated 10 degrees backwards. I think that that's literal. I think that somebody's job was to watch the sundial and all that, and I think that they literally marked, oh, this is when the sun started turning back. This is when the sun started going ahead, and it was 10 degrees. I think that that's a literal measurement. Anyways, the writing of Hezekiah, king of Judah, when he had been sick and was recovered of his sickness. I said, in the cutting off of my days, I shall go to the gates of the grave. I am deprived of the residue of my years. I said, I shall not see the Lord, even the Lord, in the land of the living. I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world. Mine age is departed, and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. I have cut off like a weaver my life. He will cut me off with pining sickness. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. I reckon till morning that, as a lion, so will he break all my bones. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. Like a crane or a swallow did I chatter. I did mourn as a dove. Mine eyes fail with looking upward. O Lord, I am oppressed. Undertake for me. What shall I say? He hath both spoken unto me, and himself hath done it. I shall go softly all my years in the bitterness of my soul. O Lord, by these things men live, and in all these things is the life of my spirit. So wilt thou recover me and make me to live. So this is interesting. Is this his prayer? Is this seems like this is the prayer that he gave. So did he write it down afterwards? O Lord, by these... I already read that one. Next verse 17. Behold, for peace I had great bitterness, but thou hast in love to my soul delivered it from the pit of corruption, for thou hast cast all my sins behind thy back. For the grave cannot praise thee, death cannot celebrate thee. They that go down into the pit cannot hope for thy truth. The living, he shall praise thee, as I do this day. The father to the children shall make known thy truth. The Lord was ready to save me, therefore we will sing my songs to the stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of the Lord. For Isaiah had said, let them take a lump of figs and lay it for a plaister upon the boil, and he shall recover. Interesting. Hezekiah also had said, what is the sign that I shall go up to the house of the Lord? So verse 21, is that like a ritual that Isaiah was told to perform in order for him to recover? Well, God is a healer, and here, what I find very interesting is the talking about the sins being thrown behind the back, verse 17. Because it is a good question about salvation before Jesus. And I think it really just comes down to a case-by-case basis back then before Jesus, that God knows everybody's hearts. And I guess they relied on God's forgiveness for forgiveness of their sins. They had all sorts of various rituals and sacrifices. If you sinned, you'd have to bring this to the temple to be slaughtered and perform this ritual and that. Just different times. Okay, so that's it for Isaiah chapter 38 today, and I'm going to start talking about just something that interests me, which is fake history, and particular this most recent reset. And somebody made a good comment saying that the Renaissance was probably also a reset, and that makes sense. I mean, the Renaissance, it means rebirth, so that would make sense if that was another reset time. And a lot of times these great inventors, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, Tesla, more often than not, I think that those people are either completely fabricated, in the case of Da Vinci or whatever. Who knows if somebody named Da Vinci even existed. However, I think that what's important is that these people are not superheroes that invent 500,000 things. They're gatekeepers who inherited technology and slowly leaked it. They had labs, like Edison's lab was an old world lab that Edison inherited and was slowly re-releasing tech, trying to get tech back up and running. I don't think these people invented any of this stuff whatsoever. I think that they were slow releasing technologies that they were refurbishing after a reset. What is up with all these towns with streetcars? We don't even have streetcars these days in towns. The cities were so much better built in the past, and it's because there was a greater society than us before, and we're just riding it out after the reset. Come in and they refurbished a bunch of stuff, but then, see, it's so weird. It's like they were better in the 1800s than we are today. Why was it better? Why was public transportation better back then than it is now? Why did every small town pretty much have trolleys? That doesn't make any sense. The history doesn't make sense because it's not what they say. Look at this. This is a perfect example. This looks like, I'm not sure if it is the case, but I think that they did this a lot. It's like a wooden facade is placed over an old building. I think that this happened a lot, where you have these old masonry buildings and they have to hide it. So they build this wooden structure, a facade around the building. I'm not 100% sure that that's happening here with this hotel, but I think it certainly happened a lot, especially with the downtowns. I'll have other pictures, but they basically come in and just build a wooden front to it. I don't think they built these. I think that they refurbished them and got them up and running again. Steam technology. You know what this reminds me of? A Brave New World, which sounds like, hey, let's have a reset and start over. A Brave New World is obsessed with this idea of pneumatic. Pneumatics are things that are powered by air, steam. So whatever society was erased before this most recent reset, they were an end society. They had technology, and they preferred steam technology. They sell us the story that steam technology is ancient, and they sell us the story that, things made out of cast iron. And I think of these candy making. Go look up YouTube candy making things where these people will have antique cast iron candy making apparatuses that still function perfectly today. Think of what do we get today? Cheap China crap that breaks in a year, planned obsolescence. Just because something is made out of iron or cast iron or Just because something was made 200 years ago doesn't make it low tech. Just because it's not electrical doesn't mean it's low tech. These people probably preferred it. They preferred steam technology. It's clean. They preferred mechanical things over... Who's impressed by a cheap China computer chip in a plastic shell toy that we have today compared to a beautiful mechanical objet d'art from times past? You know, I'm thinking like the old... Have you seen the old bird? It's like a little it's a little box, wind up, and little birds pop out and sing songs and then go back in. It's like, I don't even think people could make this today. Who would make that? So, this was some interesting historical stuff. The Model T is an interesting phenomenon. T is a big thing for these people. Yeah, I honestly don't think that they built most of these. I think they were inherited. Here's a perfect example. Look how old that building already looks. And were these part of technology? Maybe the wires used to go... See these top things that I'm talking about? Do you really think that somebody could build something like this? And then they have what? This wooden... The wooden pole? So I think what it is they had to destroy, or it all went offline, the old electrical system, which was probably wireless. And, you know, people like Nikola Tesla made it clear that they knew about wireless energy technologies. There's such a disconnect here between the building, which already looks ancient. Look how ancient this already looks. That is not a new building. And then you got these crappy wood telephone poles they put up. And see, this is what I mean by the facade. They take a beautiful masonry building like this. What's that say? AD... That's supposed to be 1887? I don't know. But, you know, they come in and they change one number. Add a couple hundred years to the timeline. Maybe add 1,000 years to the timeline. But there's certainly a disconnect. Here are some really cool pictures. I think this bridge was already there. I think the bridge was there. And I think that right here, it's... starting to fall apart. I think a lot of bridges were around. Portland has some really old looking bridges, and especially where the bridges are anchored in the water. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, what do you call it? Roman concrete. How there's all sorts of technology that's been lost over the years. And steamboats. I think that steamboats were an end society thing. I think they preferred to travel like this. And I don't think it's low tech at all. And it was so extravagant. There's none of this stuff these days in Oregon. I've never seen steamboats going up and down the rivers here. You see people floating in tubes and some kayakers, and they got some police boats out there every once in a while. You don't really see steamboat technology out here anymore. Look at this, though. This is quite the explanation. The old steel bridge was built in 1893 and dynamited in June of 1926. Does that make sense to build a bridge 33 years, eh? That's 33 years. I just noticed that. Oh, so this bridge stood for 33 years. Does it make sense to build a steel bridge to blow it up 33 years later? No, it doesn't. That doesn't make any sense. The large round steel supports of the bridge are still there and hold up power lines. Yeah, it's interesting. They turn the bridge into power lines. There's bridges here in Albany today that they have obelisks all over them. They have obelisks at the start of the bridge and the end of the bridge. There were some cool things in here. You want to stop and read, you can go ahead. I know that there were some cool things, cool explanations. So I actually just read something pretty interesting about how most people in Albany have no idea that there used to be a bridge in this spot. They just figure that it was always power lines. And I was reading some blog post of of somebody looking around old stuff in Albany, and they mentioned speaking to a 90-year-old resident there who remembers the bridge, and they said it was really scary to walk across. It was really narrow, and I also read some blurb about some rich family in the neighborhood who would monitor the bridge, and well, that was right here. Some of the women of the Peacock family standing at the south end of the bridge. The sign above them reads, "Notice, $100 fine," which is a lot back then, "for any person or persons riding or driving faster than a walk, or driving more than 21 head of horses, cattle, or mules, or more than 100 head of sheep at one time, or driving any stock faster than a walk across this bridge." It's just strange that they would build such a weak bridge and then demolish it 33 years later. My guess is that it was already there and it was badly damaged, and that's why they had to be so careful with it and eventually destroyed it. Or maybe it wasn't even used as a bridge at the time for pedestrians or for cars and stuff. Maybe it was just a walking bridge in times past. I don't know. Maybe the bridge used to have a lot more stuff around it and they got rid of it. Because I think a big part of the resets is they want to get into an area first fast and destroy any evidence of ancient tech, I think was largely what they were getting rid of. And they need to paint this story that they're starting from nothing when really they're inheriting a whole lot. It makes me think of how much of the early history of America is about all these big bankers, and there's so many stories of donating land and buying land, and it was just a big free-for-all, and the Wild West is just all about who can go grab the most stuff and make up a backstory for why you have all this stuff. Some cool pictures, leisurely activities. Like, it just seems so. What made me think of the Wild Wild West was reading about all these steamboats. It's like there was a big grab for, well, I got my steamboat, the other guy got his steamboat, and they were like racing them, and it just seems like a free-for-all, and it seems chaotic and out of place. Why were the early settlers building streetcars and steam and all these steam engines? And man, today sucks compared to times past. You would think that there'd be more of this stuff today, but it's almost always less. Today you go to these downtown areas and they're run down. Half the buildings aren't even there anymore. There was a fire, of course. You'll get used to hearing about fires. This is an interesting picture. Just more of that bridge. Okay, so there's a story of Alice, what do you call it? Paddle? What do you call these things? Steamboats. The town declined in 1870. Only 3 were constructed. No steamers were built after the 1870s. Why, though? So this is just, reading this made me think of, it's Wild Wild West. Joe Smith inherits a steamboat, and somebody else inherits another steamboat, and they're trying them out to see whose is the biggest and the baddest and the fastest. It seems very out of place and unnatural, and yeah, history really doesn't make much sense if you take it at face value. But if you have this understanding of history resets and stuff, it just makes more sense. It's like the whole transvestigation thing. It just makes more sense when you understand the agenda, the Baphomet agenda. When you understand that history resets happen and it's a big free-for-all for grabbing the most stuff afterwards, things come into place. There were rumors that there'd be a race. Stopped at all the landings along the way and arrived in Salem at 5 p.m. with 33 passengers. That number 33 popping up. According to a newspaper report from Salem, they were both making the water fly when they passed out of sight. So, I think that they lie and they say that these steamboat things were old, weak tech, but as far as I can tell, they were working pretty good, and they were fast and they were strong. Some of them got repurposed into towboats. Aren't towboats really, really powerful? Steam technology is advanced, clean technology. Just because you have a computer to your available doesn't mean that that's the pinnacle of technology or what you find is the best. I love low tech instruments personally, and I don't think that not everything has to be computer chipped. There's a lot of amazing things in life that are mechanical, and in fact, tons of people out there value mechanical things over just an electric chip, some computer chip doing something. I've always been of the opinion, when you're watching Star Trek or something and somebody busts out this high-tech future musical instrument and all they have to do is like put their hand on it and it starts playing music, that's not interesting. That's not a good thing. Well, okay, then what is coming from the player? If the player just has to put their hand on it and then it makes beautiful music, that's just a trinket. You have a cool trinket. Like anybody could make that with a computer chip where you just press something and it starts playing music. That's not interesting. What's interesting is when you can take a piece of wood and carve a few holes in it and create beautiful sounds out of this hollowed out piece of wood. To me, I find that high tech, beautiful, advanced. A Chinese plastic toy that has a computer chip in it does not seem advanced to me. It seems like garbage. Taking it back to the whole candy making things where they have these ancient, spend $5 on some cheap China stuff that breaks in 2 minutes, or invest in some solid hardware that's going to last you a lifetime, and not just you a lifetime, your children a lifetime, and them a lifetime. That's advanced tech, to be able to build things with posterity, to build a cathedral that can stand for thousands of years. That is advanced. Yeah, I was reading some stuff just now about the Peacock family, and somebody went into their old house and was rummaging through things. They said that they found some old notebooks where they were talking about moving large sums of money, talking about buying houses in Lebanon and stuff. What I found interesting, where is it? Something about there was no insurance on these things. I find that interesting, because isn't that the kind of stuff these people are all obsessed with? Would you really build a new steamboat and not have insurance on it? And yeah, I mentioned earlier that the video, I think it was My Lunch Break or something, mentions how like within the first 16 years of America or something, they built the stock market. And stuff like that has always been weird to me too. Is that the kind of thing when you just start the JP Morgans and stuff like that? Why does a brand new society have these bigwigs, the hotshots that are buying huge amounts of land? And it's never seemed organic, because it's not. It's just top-down Freemasonry. The higher-ups inherited more stuff. There was recently the cool video from John Levi on the panoramic. It's like they were sending people up in balloons over these cities and getting detailed panoramic shots of the city for investors, and putting the great buildings that were there around, like looking for investors and stuff. It's just all very odd. I thought this was funny. In January 1874, an Albany, Oregon newspaper published a complaint by Mr. Preston Bowman that he had kept tame geese, and the crew of the Alice had recently been amusing themselves by shooting the geese as the steamer passed by his place up and down the river. It was just a free-for-all back then. The Wild West is because it was just a free-for-all. There was all this infrastructure and all this stuff to inherit, but there wasn't enough. The machine hadn't been running long enough for there to be real institutions, like real police departments. All of that stuff didn't exist, but there were all these buildings. There was all this stuff for people to play around with. It looks like people playing in the biggest playground available when you look at these old pictures. They look so happy to be riding around on their steam engine that they just refurbished. Alice made a trip from Oregon City to Albany and stopped at 33 landings along the way. Yeah, I think they inherited a lot of this stuff. The Willamette Chief came to an end. Destruction by fire, what do you know? Just all the tales of people, the alleged great people of times past. I've always known they were phonies. They just look ridiculous. They put on clothes and take a portrait shot looking important, and then they say, I did all of these important things. I built all of these places. I did all of these things. No, you didn't. Oregon is filled with some gorgeous old world buildings. The University of Oregon has some of the most impressive old world architecture. They don't build them like they used to. I've actually been in some of these. I've been in this one. Has a cool mezzanine floor. Has some checkerboard tiling in there. Has one of those, you know when they have it's like they have a roof area. What do they call it? Something about widows, something. Where it's like the iron fence around the top, and it looks like you could go up there and hang out, but they never let us plebs get access to stuff like that. There's actually a door right there. You go down, there's the basement access. Well, that's it. This was kind of a rambly video. I am interested in steam technology. It's something to look into more. I think that the old world very much valued steam technology because of how clean it is. And it's very powerful. They try to sell steam technology as weak, but steam locomotives are so powerful. And think of how much of this stuff is no longer here, and how many of those steam trains are just sitting in a park somewhere, and they like paint them all up. It's weird. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? When they take a train and it's like they cover the train in this thick black paint that renders it useless. It's just strange. All right, well, that's it for this video. God bless everyone.